A heated debate tonight in Robinson as residents pack City Hall for a discussion on flock cameras.
The license plate reading cameras are stirring up controversy nationwide with concerns about privacy and misuse. News 10's Abby Ferguson was at the meeting tonight, which, Abby, it escalated quickly, right?
Yeah, that's right, Lauren and Gordon. It was a packed house at the Robinson City Hall, with one council member saying that he's never seen it this crowded. But the residents turned up to speak their minds about the city's installation of flock cameras. The discussion started with a presentation from Robinson's police chief about their current use of flock. And then the discussion turned a little heated as residents voiced concerns about mass surveillance and officer misuse.
Until we're violated, we don't show up because we put trust in each one of you to not do that to us.
A Robinson City Council meeting turning into a debate between residents and council members. The reason? Flock cameras, the license plate reading technology that has sparked debate nationwide. Robinson police say the cameras are a critical tool to track stolen vehicles and solve crimes, pulling up examples of those solved crimes thanks to the technology. But multiple citizens called the cameras an invasion of privacy.
When flock can track where we move, that's an issue. That goes against everything that we should stand for.
I think it normalizes government surveillance, and I want no part of that in my town.
Mayor Greg May made a post last week on Facebook announcing that flock cameras would be on tonight's agenda, stirring up discussion in his comment section. But the conversation that arose tonight revealed how residents really feel face to face.
But I think that there's plenty of people here that you can get the pulse that they're not happy with this.
But Mayor May said the citizens' comments about mass surveillance were hypocritical.
That phone you hold in that hand, that passport you have, your driver's license, every time you go travel, you might as well say your rights are being violated.
While the residents responded to that statement with a call to council.
You actually have a choice in this or not. Well, you're saying you don't have a choice, the airport, you don't have a choice. You guys have a choice in Robinson to not do this.
Right. Robinson implemented their first flock camera in September of 2025, committing to a year-long contract with the company. Mayor May said they're considering whether or not to renew that contract with flock based on residents' responses. The council will make a final decision at a meeting on September 1st.